I have something kind of embarrassing that I need to admit. I was browsing through Twitter like I'm prone to do, and I clicked on a banner ad. Well, it wasn't so much a banner ad as it was a promoted tweet. It was for this online service that lets you do promotional videos, and they have this whole library of a bunch of different stuff. And it said, you can try it free. And I guess you have to pay if you want to like export the video, but it's sort of an automatic thing. You give it a template and punch in some text and it like auto makes some random movie. So I typed in wheelchair and this is what it came up with. It's, well, you be the judge. Okay, interesting. It's not worth $30 a month for their base plan, but that guy in the end of the video was so happy. Did you see his face? Like, look at that. He's just so content to have mopeds speeding around him and avoiding potholes in the street. Oh yeah, want to buy an iPod? I've got a few. We have encountered a little bit of a problem with the dryer vent situation. I've got the thing running right now, and as you can see, our sad little hose is connected to the floor. But when I go outside, there's an issue.
This little flapper valve right here, I mean, it kind of opens, but not really. If I open it up by hand, you can feel hot air coming out. But, yeah, see?
The blower on that little tiny dryer isn't powerful enough to open the little louvers on that vent. This thing needs all the airflow it can get, and if the exhaust is plugged, this thing is not going to work very well. Plus, this being a long corrugated tube probably isn't helping. I'm probably going to trim that down so it's as short as possible and just make it go directly down to the floor. So, I don't know. I've got a couple different options. I suppose the easiest thing would probably just be to remove the little louvers from that vent outside, and that way the air can just flow freely out. Those are designed to keep cold air from drafting back in, though. So, I don't know. This dryer is a lot higher than that vent, so if I did leave it open, I think the cold air being on the bottom and the hot air on top wouldn't necessarily start a draft. But I think as long as I keep the door closed on that dryer, it shouldn't be sucking heat out of the house. The other option, I suppose, is to basically just take those louvers off and then put some sort of hand-operated valve right here, sort of like a fireplace damper, so I can just open it when I turn on the dryer. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I think that might be the easiest thing to do. So yeah, I'm gonna shorten up that hose, I'm gonna get a little damper valve that I can open, and I'm just gonna rip the little louvers off the front of that thing. They're just little plastic things that sit in place, so I don't think that'll be too big of a deal. But right now, as it is, if I run that thing, it's not going to dry very well. It's only a 110 dryer with a pretty small blower, and I think it's 4-inch pipe. Boy, can't see me at all, can you? But anyways, at least the parts are finally here, and we can at least be directing the hot air outside of the house. Because right now, the humidity kind of builds up in that room, and I just leave the garage door open. But then the furnace has to work harder because the cold air from the garage is getting in, and it turns into this cycle of saving the environment. I just pulled those louvers off and then I realized, wait a minute, squirrels and rodents. We're going to have to figure out another way to deal with this. I'll figure something out. Next up in the queue, we've got this M3 here.
This is the third one in a row that needs a JTAG connector. I will have to delete this video because Paul will come back and he will murder me.
And we're doing a couple of different things to this chair. First thing they want done is the USB charger over here moved to this side. And then also he doesn't use the thigh guards on this at all, so I'm going to take those off. And he's actually paying me in parts. I will be able to use those on another chair. grab some tools here real quick. These things are ridiculously easy to remove. Man, I love this new camera. So basically all you need to do is get your Allen key. We'll take these things out of here first. And then this is, what, a 5/32. I think these are technically metric bolts, but you just loosen these about 1 turn. You don't want to go more than that, otherwise you'll lose the T-nuts. And then here on the front, there's a little cover. You just basically grab this, pull forward, and then out, and that comes off the chair. Then you grab this, slide the whole thing out, and there you go. All your T-nuts and everything are already on here. I like to go ahead and tighten these things down because these nuts will rattle loose, these nuts, and you will lose them. These things are actually kind of hard to find, these square T-style fasteners. Oh look, there's a dead spider in there. Go away. So I always like to tighten these down, and then I'll just attach them back to this and tighten these on. That way now you've got a whole unit and you won't lose all the parts. Everything's right here. And then we'll go ahead and put this front piece back on here. And it sort of slides behind this front cover. So, and there's two notches here. The bar goes in the top one, which is this thing right here. So basically you just slide it on there, pry this whole thing forward a little bit, and there's enough flex there that you can do this without breaking anything. Get these down in here, and there we go. Now it's back on. Spin it around and we'll deal with the other side real quick. And there we go. I can throw these in the parts bin. But actually in this particular case, these are not going in the parts bin, they're going directly onto another one of my chairs, which would be the steampunk chair once I get it fixed. It's sitting right here, so I'm just gonna set them on the chair right now. That way I don't lose them. He just got this chair from someone and it's used, so we're just basically getting it set up for him. I'm probably gonna take it outside tomorrow and clean it up with the air compressor because there's a lot of filth on here. Looks like these armrests need some attention too. They're a little bit wobbly. So I'm gonna hang it over the back of the chair for now. And then these armrests need to be tightened down quite a bit. Actually, to do this, I'm going to remove the armrest from the chair because there's a couple of the bolts you can't get to. And I believe it's this. Yeah, that's a 6mm. Never been removed. So we just pull these out, and then this thing will slide off of the mounting mechanism. I'm gonna do it carefully though, because it'll swing around and hit you in the face if you're not careful. So I'm sort of holding it with one hand. There we go. And I'm gonna stick these bolts in here so they don't escape. Maybe noticing a theme about not losing your parts. As you can see here, this armrest was adjusted down so it was a little bit longer, and this whole mechanism is loose. There's 2 little access holes here, and you can reach down through these and loosen those up a little bit. All 4 of them inside these little access holes need to be loosened. There we go. Now our mounting mechanism will slide freely up and down the armrest. And I'm just gonna set it so that it's about flush with the back, because I think that's where most of these chairs are typically adjusted to. Then we'll tighten down all 4 of these. Yeah, and you can't really access these when it's on the chair. And then next up, this whole thing is floppy, and our giant Allen screw right here is going to be the one to tighten that down. This is a 5mm. Basically, as you see here, as I tighten it, this gap goes away. There we go. This thing's all back in one piece now. So we're going to go ahead and stick it back on the chair. And there's a couple of options on these Permobiles. If you want your armrest to be fixed in a level position, you use these 2 holes here. If you want it to be adjustable, you use the top hole and then the slider right here, and that allows you to set your angle. Typically, most people keep them on the center 2 holes, and if you want to change the angle of your armrest, you can just use these turnbuckles back here to do that. But as you can see, this one, if you look real close, you can see there's star washer marks on each one of these holes here. So in case you weren't paying attention when you took it apart, it's real easy to notice which holes were used when you put it back together. With it in like this, the thing is not going to rotate. there's a second bolt hole down here. And if you were to screw it into that one, now you have all of this adjustment that you can change. That's not a typical setup though. Usually it's only for custom armrests or people that need pretty specific mounting that's out of the adjustable range of what these turnbuckles can do. I really should be using power tools for this. That should be good. And now this armrest is nice and solid. Okay, I guess next we'll flip this thing around and deal with the wiring for the USB charger. And it's running under this side cover that I hate in the corner of the armrest here. So I'm gonna have to pop that off real quick. Sometimes they're hex bolts. I was gonna say, sometimes they're Phillips screws and sometimes they are hex bolts. I've randomly mentioned these things in past videos, but I hate these covers. It's right here on each side and your joystick cables run through them. But basically there's a little hex cap here and another one down here, and then the side cover comes off. I'm not gonna show you how to do that because it's hard to film. I think I covered it in the F3 armrest video. But yeah, so we gotta take this off so we can pull this wire out of here. And then this wire runs into the back cover. And what we're gonna do instead of having it come out here, we're gonna have it come out this way. And then we're gonna take off this cover, feed it through there, and then mount it under this armrest over here. I'm not gonna do that on camera though, because it's super obnoxious and I just wanna get it done. And also it's virtually impossible to film. Okay, so we had to pull the back cover off of this. These USB chargers are interfaced with the ICS switch box system. And looks like we've got a fair bit of extra wire in here, but they usually put one of these Y splitters in here. And I just mounted this thing up here and then I realized I didn't run the wire inside like it should be. So I'm just gonna unplug it real quick. Then we can bring it back around here. There we go. And now it's run on the inside like it should be. Before I plug that back in though, I'm going to take care of the wire routing and then also pull this cover and run it under there. And then, yeah. Okay, we've got our wire all run. Our USB charger's right here. And apparently, these things rattle a little bit. I didn't realize that. I might actually pull that screw out of there and put some electrical tape underneath it to give it some padding. That way it doesn't rattle like that. But as you can see, wire runs down here. I managed to get it into this cable raceway. And then I can't find my tiny black zip ties. I know they're around somewhere. I'll find them eventually, but so it runs down here, then it goes into this little housing. Then same thing here, I'm gonna need a few more zip ties, so it's gonna come down here, clips into this thing, and then I'm gonna wind up with the rest of the slack here and tuck it in here. These things basically bend down and clip in like that to hold some of the wiring. But yeah, let me get that done real quick. There we go, everything looks nice and tidy there. We can fold this cover back up, put the screws in, and we'll have to re-engage these clips on the bottom. Those usually sound like they're breaking when you're installing them, but they usually don't, and we'll be good to go. And also, you don't want to go very tight on these screws on the back because this plastic housing will break pretty easily. Now to get these bottom clips in, the way I do it, I normally just use a big T-handle like this, and I can't really zoom in to show you, but I just basically put this in just the right spot and then give it a whack. There we go. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably another way you're supposed to do that, but that's the way I end up doing it. It doesn't really cause a problem or do anything negative or whatnot. One thing I do also like to check on these chairs, this here is the shear reduction mechanism where the back slides up and down as the chair tilts. And you can't adjust this while someone's sitting in the chair because there can't be any load on it. I just like to grab the bottom of the chair, give it a shake. Seems like it's pretty solid. And then also you want to make sure this screw right here on top of this little lever is tight. If it is loose, however, which this one actually is a little bit loose. Oh yeah, see? Let me see if I can zoom in here. See how we've got a bunch of movement right there? This whole thing is moving up and down. So that's coming loose, and that will actually cause some problems. The way you have to deal with this bolt is you can't just tighten this thing down. If you do, you'll damage the mechanism. You have to lift up on the backrest of the chair. See how that moves a little bit when I do that? You have to lift it up so there's neutral weight, and then you can tighten it down while you're lifting up. And You have to kind of work it up and down as you tighten it. Then once it gets solid, you can give it a pretty good tweak and make sure it's solid. This little piece right here, you want to make sure this is loose enough so that these little heads can rotate. Double check and make sure that's tight. That one's good. This one here looks fine. And now our shear mechanism, well, that bushing looks like it might be a little worn out. Yeah, that bushing's a little worn out, but at least the bolt is tight now and it's not going to go anywhere. These things will come loose and then the whole back of the chair will just drop down and it can pinch your backside and all kinds of stuff. So that's something I always like to check on these things as well. I think other than programming, that's about it for right now on this thing. Got the USB charger moved over to this side. But yeah, I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow when it's not 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to go outside, hit this thing with the air compressor, clean it off a little bit. And then I think they're coming over tomorrow sometime and I can talk to them. Actually, you're probably watching this, so yes, I need to talk to you about what exactly we want to change for programming on here. I know we want to do stealth mode and then turn off the auto power off, but as far as performance adjustments, we'll have to talk about that and figure out what you want there. But yeah, oh, another thing to check. These turnbuckles, these will always come loose as well. See, these are all loose. So you want to check these and make sure these haven't rattled loose as well. That's another thing that always comes loose on these chairs. But yeah, I think we're good.